So I'm here with Brooke from Mosaic Property Group. Great to see you, mate.
Good to see you, mate. Thanks for your time.
No, I appreciate it. Mosaic's got an amazing reputation in Queensland and across the country for being one of the good guys when it comes to delivering great projects over a long period of time. Would you mind sharing a bit about how the company got started and how you think about projects and delivering good outcomes for the consumer?
Yeah, look, we started in construction development, or I did back in 2004. So we've been at it for some time and started out early on, splitting large suburban blocks sort of within 10 to 12 k's of Brisbane CBD, and then over time added the luxury component with high-end homes, and then slowly moved into smaller unit complexes, and we even partnered with government on some affordable housing products. So pretty diverse, still learning, didn't know what we didn't know at that point in time, and had to manage our way through the GFC and out the other side of that. But through that process, we had interacted with a large cross-section of the consumer market at a different point in the cycle to what we've been in more recently. And so out the other side of that, there was a time to really understand what do we want to do, but also most importantly, who do we not want to be? And when we rebranded the construction development arm of my business at the beginning of 2012, so we're 14 and a bit, or 12 and a bit years ago now, it was with a clarity that we wanted to reach a cross-section of the market that was based on understanding what the consumer wanted and then being able to consistently deliver that over a long period of time. So we've become known as a luxury brand in the marketplace. It's not what we set out to do. We set out to design and deliver product that the market responded well to, and that form and function was just as important as architecture and beauty. But most importantly, that people knew that we did things for the right reasons over the long term, and that the buyer that bought off us today would be another buyer in the future, and if it wasn't them, it would be one of their family members or friends. So that was how the business was established. That was the ethos, and by and large, it's worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah, I think that kind of long-term thinking is something that kind of has driven so much of the Mosaic success, looking from the outside in. Are there any particular buyer demographics you guys have focused on? You mentioned you've kind of moved, product type has changed over time, but is there kind of a core market you focus on?
Mate, it's a really good question. I think that's definitely evolved over time because the market's changed over time. So for us, we're trying to understand the market at any point, but we're also making decisions around where that market's likely to be 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, given the gestation of finding a site to then trying to design something for that particular site, deliver it to the market, have the market respond, and then actually go and build it. And so for us, understanding population growth, but also understanding changes in household formation and demographic trends has been really important. And we've always said that we'd be a developer that responded to a larger cross-section of the market. So we'll deliver projects now that are mostly suited to wealthy downsizers and wealthy first-time downsizers in luxury apartment markets, and particularly on the coast, where apartment price ranges might be between $5 and $10, $11, $12 million. And we couldn't have dreamed of that 20 years ago. But then we've also got diversity of product that will enable people to come and buy a 2-bedroom or 2-bedroom plus MPR product in any one of our markets that suits a different buyer demographic. We're definitely seeing more and more people at earlier stages in their life cycle looking to choose apartment living as a preferred choice of living, and that wasn't here 8 or 9 years ago when we first started out. And you've got to remember too, we started out developing medium density product, sort of 5 to 8 k's from Brisbane CBD. We delivered close to 50 buildings in the first 8 years, which is a lot of product, and that was sort of 3 to sort of 8 to 10 stories, sort of 20 to 25 up to 80 apartments or townhouses in a project. And we got to know the demographic in that region really well, and there was a really good cross-sectional diversity of buyer type. And then as we've moved into new markets, obviously over time, that buyer diversity has changed even more as our brand has, I guess, resonated with more people in the market, and particularly the luxury end of the market on the coast.
I think one of the things we have in common is that we think that buyers should really be focusing on doing their due diligence on who the developer is that they're working with, who the builder is, and so forth. That's what we're really focused on with Urban. And to be honest, we're trying to help people find developers like Mosaic and tell the difference between a Mosaic and then maybe someone that is, not to say that new developers are a bad thing. I actually think it's a positive thing for the market, but I think they need to work their way up to doing large scale projects like you deliver. What advice would you give to a consumer when they're and what are the types of things they should be looking out for when making the decision and comparing developers to buy from?
It's a really good question, right? And I get asked this question a lot.
Yeah.
And you also need to understand from my perspective when I give this answer, there's a natural bias, right? And people think there's a bias towards our business. And we've built a fully vertically integrated business over a long period of time. We're close to 300 staff. We've got over $1 billion worth of projects under construction. We've delivered about $2 billion worth of projects in the last 12 years. So there's a lot of runs on the board. And I only say that to give context and perspective. And I talk to young people in the development industry, and this is how it relates to the consumer. New entrants to the market, I am fully supportive of, and I think it's really great for the market. It creates competition. It's the next generation of people coming through that aspire, hopefully, to deliver great product to the consumer. But not everybody gets into this industry for the same reasons. Yeah. Some people get into it because they think they can make money. And normally, if that's your driver, that you're likely to go broke or disappoint the market or the consumer at some point in time. So I think for the consumer, who thankfully is more educated now than they were 15 years ago, given the advent of having access to information. So transparency is a lot better than it was, and we're massively supportive of that. But track record is key. I see projects that get launched from people I've never heard of, or if you look further, they might have developed 5 townhouses before, and then all of a sudden they're now developing or proposing to develop a 30-storey building. We have big concerns around that because we know what it took for us to develop a skill set over a long period of time where we could even contemplate launching and then developing or building a 30-storey building, which we do now. But there's no way in the world that we would have approached a 30-storey building 8 or 9 years ago. So building capability slowly over time. So it all comes back to track record. At some point in time, the consumer has to trust new entrants, I guess. Otherwise, they don't ever get a project off the ground. So I think it's challenging because there can be new entrants that deliver good projects. But by and large, in the market that we're in at the moment in particular, where there's been so many development builders that have gone broke over the last 3 to 4 years, and that's impacted the consumer. I think we spoke just before you got here, and I'll look at some of our markets, and particularly the Gold Coast. There's dozens and dozens of sites that are sitting vacant because new entrants or inexperienced entrants or people that have got into the industry for the wrong reason or driven by greed or ego have purchased sites with other people's money, designed a project for a DA that probably doesn't understand what the market wants, has gone through the process of launching, maybe found some interest, maybe got some buyers, hasn't fully appreciated the complexity of construction and construction pricing and the dislocated labour market. And it's now got to a point whereby it's impossible for that project to be delivered because there's no builders or it's commercially unviable. So as a result, the project sits dormant. So there's dozens and dozens of these sites sitting dormant, but there's also a lot of consumers attached to those dozens and dozens of projects sitting dormant who are now locked into contracts they can't get out of, but they also can't buy another house or another apartment because they still have an obligation until that sunset date sort of completes. So from my point of view, advice to the consumer is to definitely do your homework. And if you don't understand the track record of that organisation, and I'd encourage that track record to relate to whatever is the project they're now taking to the consumer. Yeah. So if you've got a developer, even if they've got a track record, is that track record reflective of the type of product that you're looking to buy for that developer? And if not, I would say proceed with caution in the current market.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And we're just trying to find ways that we can showcase, like on the Mosaic organisation profile. I don't think we've got all 50 buildings, but I think we've got 30 projects you've previously delivered. And I think consumers having access to the information that you were talking about is one of those key things that's going to, over time, hopefully influence a more successful market. One of the things I wanted to ask you about as well is, I won't name who the people are, but many of the kind of rising stars of the property development space in terms of like really high quality, delivering great product and doing a good job of it, have told me that you mentor them and do that on the side to kind of help them deliver great outcomes. And you could argue those people are competitors to Mosaic, and you're taking your time to coach those guys as they're coming up. What types of advice do you give to those people, and what types of questions do they have for you?
Yeah, I think my passion for that is just to encourage the next generation to come through. Look, I don't come from a typical property development construction background. I started out in agriculture. I come from working class roots, so I certainly don't come from money. And Mosaic has been built from the ground up through hard work, and we're really fortunate to have an amazing group of people that work at Mosaic, that choose Mosaic. It's not the easiest place to work, but it is a place that has been founded on a core set of values that align with delivering what we say we're going to do, working hard, and making sure that we can still be around 10, 15, 20 years from now. And so I talk a lot about that journey. I got into this business because we're generally passionate about design, development, construction. I come from a practical background, given my agricultural background. I love the fact that we build our product. I love the fact that we are heavily involved in the design, but I love that we also are accountable for every part of that single process. Like, we've got 10 different divisions within Mosaic. It's not just design, development, construction. And so that fully vertically integrated components of our business ensure that we can deliver on the promise. So when I talk to young developers, and you're not going to get there in 5 minutes. So we didn't get to where we are now, even in the space of 3 to 5 years. It's really been a 20-year journey to get to this point. And so I say to the young generation coming through is make sure you understand why you're getting into this industry, and if it's for the right reasons, and that's ultimately to deliver really great housing choices or shelter, because that's fundamentally at the core of what we do. So do you build really good shelter where you can stand behind your product rather than just make decisions driven around, I want to build a business that makes money for me? And I think if you are doing it for the right reasons, and the right reasons need to consider all stakeholders, obviously the consumer first, but other stakeholders. So community, government, industry, obviously the people that work for you to actually go and deliver that product. We are in an industry that is entirely reliant on blue collar. So people who work really hard in tough conditions for 6 days a week in the southeast Queensland climate to make sure that the product we want to deliver our consumer is delivered on time to a really high level and high quality. So there needs to be some roots grounded in humility, gratitude, taking a long-term view and making sure that it's about the consumer at the end of the day. So if I get the opportunity to speak to young people coming through, I talk about why I got into the industry, which is driven by that philosophy. And if you're taking that same view and you're willing to look 20 to 30 years down the line, then it's a really exciting and really rewarding industry. But I always like to challenge what are the reasons they're getting into this industry in the first instance.
Well, Brooke, I don't think I've ever said this on one of the videos before, but if I had a family member or a friend and they were looking at buying an apartment here on the Gold Coast or anywhere in Queensland, I would personally advise them to buy one from you guys. I think you guys are one of the good things about the market and doing a great job of it, not only delivering awesome project for consumers and doing what you say you're going to do, but helping other developers come through and deliver good outcomes. So appreciate the contribution you've made to the market, and you're a bloody legend, mate.
Yeah, very kind of you, mate. Appreciate your time.